Jalen Brunson, yes, he's the best player on the New York Knicks, but the most important player is Karl-Anthony Towns when it comes to the Knicks trying to get to the promised land. He has to be dominant. And what we've seen over the last 2 games is that Karl-Anthony Towns has finally started to get featured in that offense.
San Antonio, Game 2 of the Finals, Frostbank Center. Every camera was locked on Wemby. The rookie sensation, the supposed next legend, the face everyone expected to talk about. But on the other side stood the 7-footer the league spent years calling soft, and he went out and dropped 21 points and 13 rebounds. Karl-Anthony Towns became the first Knick to record a 20-point double-double in a finals road game since Dave DeBusschere did it back in 1973, the same season New York last celebrated a championship banner. Now go back 11 years. A 39-year-old Kevin Garnett returned to Minnesota with one mission: help guide the young player the Timberwolves had just selected with the #1 pick. By the end of that season, KG kept telling anyone who would listen that this kid had something special that couldn't be taught. Almost nobody took him seriously. For a decade, people around the league kept laughing. Soft, stat chaser, empty numbers, everything except what Garnett had been repeating since 2015. Fast forward, and the Knicks had just raised banner #3, and this was where the story really began. Karl-Anthony Towns, born in New Jersey, raised by a Dominican mother, built like the perfect modern big man before he was even old enough to drive. He spent 1 season at Kentucky on a squad that finished 38-1 with Devin Booker playing on the wing. Their only defeat came in the Final Four. By the time Towns arrived at the draft combine, people weren't asking if he would go first overall anymore. The real question was how far ahead he was compared to everybody else. Minnesota picked him with the #1 selection in 2015. Then came a unanimous Rookie of the Year award, receiving every first-place vote. That kind of start usually launches a Hall of Fame storyline right away. But this situation had a twist that made it stand out even more. The Timberwolves didn't just bring in a future star. They handed him over to one of the fiercest competitors the NBA has ever seen. Kevin Garnett came back because he recognized the talent immediately. He saw the smooth footwork, the touch around the basket, and the mobility. Here was a 7-footer who could shoot from deep, handle the ball, and finish above the rim with the athleticism of a wing. But the thing KG kept talking about in interview after interview wasn't any of that. It was the mindset, the drive, the energy. You can't teach the beast. It's either in you or it isn't. You can't just go to the store and buy a 6-pack of Beast. It don't work like that. That was what Garnett kept pointing to. The same edge that powered his own Hall of Fame career. And KG didn't stop at saying Towns was talented. He flat out said he's the future. He even added, when you come into this league, you don't believe there's a better player. But when he came into it, I see a lot of similarities in Karl to myself. He said it everywhere. Podcasts, TV broadcasts, public appearances, red carpets, wherever there was a microphone. Garnett predicted MVPs. He defended Towns every chance he got. The support was louder and more public than almost any mentor has ever given a young player. But hardly anyone bought into it, because in the eyes of many people, KG was just playing the role of the proud veteran, the loud uncle, the guy hyping up his young teammate because that's what mentors do. Around the league, people brushed it aside with, of course he's saying that, just another vet talking up his guy. Meanwhile, Towns started putting up numbers that should have changed the conversation completely. 25-12, 27-12, top 10 scoring seasons from the center position. Yet somehow the criticism only got louder. Folks called them empty stats, said it was happening in a small market, pointed at the lack of playoff success. The jokes started coming, and KG's support slowly became something critics treated like comedy. And for years, doubters walked around feeling like they had the last laugh. 8 seasons in Minnesota, 4 All-Star appearances, multiple top 10 scoring finishes, career averages that looked like those of a top 15 player on paper. That should have been the headline. But once people looked deeper, they had their list of complaints ready. Only 1 playoff series win in 8 years. Just 1. Questions about defense turned into running jokes. And year after year, the noise around Karl-Anthony Towns kept getting louder. Every breakdown clip on Twitter seemed to show the same thing. Cat getting targeted in the pick and roll, guards attacking him on switches, big men going right at him in the post. Whatever critics wanted to point at, the film was sitting there waiting. Then Minnesota made a massive move and traded for Rudy Gobert, giving up a huge chunk of the roster for another center. Suddenly, the #1 pick, the face of the franchise, got pushed away from his natural position. Now he was playing power forward next to a player who didn't stretch the floor. In a strange twist, Towns almost looked smaller inside his own arena. Then Anthony Edwards arrived and grabbed the spotlight. He got the keys to the team, the camera time, and eventually became the new face of the franchise. When the Wolves finally made a deep playoff run, Ant was viewed as the engine and Cat was cast as the supporting piece. Just like that, the narrative was locked in. People started acting like he had been pushed down in his own house. The soft label stopped being a debate and became accepted as fact. Critics said he wasn't a leader. They said he couldn't carry a team. They said winning wasn't part of his makeup. Top 50 rankings began leaving him out completely. Podcasts used him as the example of a #1 pick with all the physical tools, but none of the edge people wanted to see. His max contract became a favorite target. Some called it one of the worst deals in basketball. The same player who entered the league with a unanimous Rookie of the Year award had somehow become the joke. And Kevin Garnett, the guy who had called him the future from the very beginning, suddenly looked like the last person still standing on that island. For many fans, KG seemed like the only guy who couldn't see what everybody else thought they saw. Then September 2024 changed everything. Minnesota sent Karl-Anthony Towns to New York in exchange for Julius Randle, Donte DiVincenzo, and a draft pick. And the reactions came flying in. People said the Knicks had just taken on the most expensive second option in basketball. They claimed the bright lights of Madison Square Garden would expose him. They said the pressure would crush him. According to the critics, this was Jalen Brunson's team, and Cat was simply coming along for the ride. His contract was called a problem. His defense was expected to get attacked in the playoffs. Pick any opinion, and they all sounded almost identical. And this part stung the most. Even KG, who blasted Minnesota for making the trade and argued they should have moved Gobert instead, couldn't convince people that the fit in New York would work. The mentor who had defended Towns for years seemed to hesitate for the first time. But what almost everybody missed was simple. They had been judging the wrong things all along. The second Karl-Anthony Towns stepped into that Knicks locker room, a completely different story began. His first season in New York didn't just go well. It became the best year of his career. He averaged 24.4 points and 12.8 rebounds per game while shooting 42% from 3 at 7 feet tall. He earned an all-star selection that many people never expected once he moved to the Eastern Conference. And the Knicks, the same team critics claimed would collapse because of his defense, stormed through the regular season, reached the Eastern Conference Finals, and pushed Indiana to 6 games. Suddenly, those hot takes calling the trade and overpay started disappearing real fast. But the biggest story wasn't even the numbers, it was the role. For the first time in his NBA journey, Cat didn't have to carry every responsibility on his shoulders. Brunson ran the offense in the half court. OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges handled tough assignments on the wing. New York built everything around Towns' strengths: pick and pop actions, high post passing, floor spacing that opened things up for 2 elite guards. Instead of being an awkward #1 option, he became the perfect co-star, and his game leveled up in a big way. Then came another major shift. During the summer of 2025, Tom Thibodeau was out, and Mike Brown stepped in. But Brown didn't simply inherit Towns. He designed the offense to unlock every part of his skill set: dribble handoffs, inverted pick and rolls, high post actions where Cat became the glue connecting the offense instead of just being a scorer. Suddenly, the player many people had spent years doubting was being used in ways that highlighted everything that made him special. On paper, the regular season numbers actually looked a little lower. Karl-Anthony Towns averaged 20.1 points, 11.9 rebounds, and 3.0 assists while shooting 50% from the field and 37% from 3. A casual fan looking only at the box score might have said he had taken a step backward, but that take missed the bigger picture completely. The efficiency had gone up. His role had changed in a major way. For the first time in his career, Towns wasn't chasing volume. He was focused on fit, taking the right shots, picking the right moments, playing inside a system that finally brought out the best in him. The lesson Kevin Garnett had been preaching for a decade had finally clicked. Be patient. The game slows down, and after years of waiting, everything started falling into place. Then came the signal. In the middle of the season, KG appeared on national television. No loud mentor energy, no automatic excuse of course he's saying that. He looked right into the camera and kept it simple. He said Cat was playing the best basketball of his life. He said the work was finally showing. He warned that the rest of the league was about to see what he had been talking about since 2015. At that moment, almost nobody realized just how accurate those words were about to become. Because the regular season was only the opening act. New York won 53 games and produced its most complete regular season team in more than a decade. Everything pointed toward a serious playoff run, but predictions and reality are two different things. Critics still had questions. Could Towns survive playoff defenses? Would bigger front courts expose him? Could he deliver in fourth quarters with Madison Square Garden watching every move? Then the playoffs arrived, and Cat stopped being a storyline and became something much tougher to deal with. Because what followed wasn't just a strong postseason run. It turned into one of the most overwhelming playoff performances basketball had ever seen. And leading the charge was the same player many people had already given up on. The Knicks stormed through the 2026 playoffs with a 16-3 record. They won 9 straight road games to finish off series. And the advanced numbers painted an incredible picture. According to the analytics, New York posted the best playoff net rating ever recorded for a championship team, higher than the 2017 Warriors, higher than the 2001 Lakers. By the numbers, it became the most dominant title run ever measured. And at the center of all of it stood the player Kevin Garnett had been defending for 11 years. The stats almost looked unreal. Towns finished the postseason with a plus 262, the highest single playoff plus-minus ever recorded. He finished ahead of Stephen Curry in 2017, ahead of Draymond Green in 2017, ahead of Kobe Bryant in 2001. He even finished ahead of his own teammate Jalen Brunson, who went on to win Finals MVP. The number sounded so wild that some fans could barely believe it. Then came the finals. Game 2, San Antonio, a road game under the brightest lights. Karl-Anthony Towns delivered 21 points and 13 rebounds. In the process, he became the first Knick since Dave DeBusschere in 1973 to record a 20-point double-double in a finals road game. Yes, even with all the great names in franchise history, that list includes Patrick Ewing. And there's one more detail that made the moment even crazier. 1973 was also the last time the Knicks had won an NBA championship. Suddenly, the same player critics had spent years clowning, doubting, and pushing aside had become one of the biggest reasons New York was back on top. And the man who saw it coming from the very beginning had been saying the same thing all along. Then came the defense story, the same one that had followed Karl-Anthony Towns for his entire career. For years, every breakdown clip on Twitter seemed to focus on his mistakes. Every critic pointed to defense. Every joke came back to the same thing. But in the finals, Cat found himself matched up against Victor Wembanyama, the most talked about young center the game has seen in decades. And he answered the challenge in a huge way. The player many people claim couldn't protect the paint or handle physical matchups held his ground. He battled, he stayed disciplined, he outpositioned, outthought, and outworked one of the league's brightest young stars. Suddenly, the old narrative started looking shaky. And there was another part of his game that shocked people. During the playoff run, Towns recorded 94 assists, the most ever by a Knicks center in a single postseason. The high post playmaking that some critics once viewed as risky became the glue holding the offense together. Instead of slowing things down, he helped make everything click. Then came Game 4 at Madison Square Garden. The Knicks were down by 29 points at home. The building was silent. Fans were stunned. It felt like everything was slipping away, but everybody knows what happened next. New York pulled off the largest comeback in NBA Finals history. In the final moments, Jalen Brunson missed a deep three, but OG Anunoby came flying in for the tip-in. Knicks 107, Spurs 106. San Antonio's last chance ended with Stephon Castle unable to finish the play. And New York walked away with a commanding 3-1 series lead. Cat spent most of the night dealing with foul trouble, yet he still grabbed 10 rebounds in only 26 minutes. Game 4 wasn't about one flashy stat line. The entire postseason had become his statement. 2 nights later in San Antonio, Jalen Brunson exploded for 45 points and captured Finals MVP honors. The Knicks finished the job and secured their first championship in 53 years. Then, right after the final buzzer, the cameras found Kevin Garnett, and KG delivered the words he had been waiting more than a decade to say. I told y'all what he was. Just one sentence, but it carried 11 years of belief. 11 years of criticism, 11 years of people brushing him off. And with those few words, the debate was over, because every quality Garnett had talked about all those years, the motor, the work ethic, the drive, the hunger to improve, those were the things that separated Towns from the doubts surrounding him. The basketball world spent years focusing on wingspan, defensive ratings, and shot charts. KG focused on something numbers couldn't fully explain: the beast. And now, with a championship ring on his finger and the Knicks sitting back on top of the basketball world, the conversation had completely changed. The question was no longer whether Karl-Anthony Towns became the player Kevin Garnett believed he could be. The real question was why it took everybody else so long to see it. For a decade, the league measured everything about Cat: defensive metrics, playoff records, body language, every number imaginable. But sometimes the biggest difference can't be captured on a stat sheet. 11 years ago, a Hall of Famer looked at a 19-year-old rookie and called him the future. Today, that same player stands as an NBA champion. KG was right. The basketball world just needed 11 years to catch up. Karl-Anthony Towns isn't the punchline anymore. He's a champion, and the one person who believed from day one turned out to be the one nobody wanted to hear. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel for more NBA stories and wild moments. Drop a comment below and let everyone know where you rank Karl-Anthony Towns among today's best big men. And don't keep this one to yourself. Share this video with another basketball fan who needs to see it. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.